Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, good day, good everything. My name is Jason Weiss. I am the host of the Ask Jason Weiss show. Although I am an attorney, unless you have retained me outside of this broadcast, I am not your attorney. So anything discussed here is not legal advice. Should you seek legal advice, financial advice, or any type of advice, consult an attorney directly because nothing said today is legal advice. I am not your attorney, and there is no attorney-client privilege here today. However, today I have with me one of the first people I met after the lockdown of COVID. And I have never met this gentleman in person yet. However, we spent tons of time together on various different Zoom platforms and team platforms, and we're going to get into that as we dive in. But this is somebody who I've known for a very long time, 6+ years, and has been nothing but an outstanding individual. And he joins us today from the state of Tennessee. And one of the things that he is embarking on is going back. Yes, I said going back to Wisconsin because he misses those freezing weather days, and you know he is a glutton for punishment. So before we go any further, I want to introduce Ashish to everybody here. We'll call him Ashish P because it's easier than pronouncing his last name. We're going to talk about data, reporting analysis, pharmacy, visionary, and all of these things that he does to help with a positive mindset for himself and others. So Ashish, aka Iron Man, welcome to the show. And the Iron Man thing is something that when we did something called Quad Meets, which we'll talk about momentarily, he was always considered a superhero on our team. And he's Iron Man. So I even sent him a hat one time that says Iron Man. So Iron Man, Ashish, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much, Jason. Really humbled to be a guest on your show. And like I said, it's been 6 years since we first met. It seems crazy how fast time flies, but no, really respect you as an individual, as a professional, and just all the work that you do. And just truly excited to be a guest here on this show. And yeah, I think just Iron Man, Tony Stark, how he portrays in Avengers, it really hits home to me, and I feel like I am Iron Man. And yeah, even though I am in Tennessee, my goal is to move back to Wisconsin. And yeah, I am a glutton for punishment, but I love the snow a lot more than these hot 100-degree days here in Tennessee. So,
well, you definitely don't want to come join me here in South Florida because, we're constantly 80, 90, 100 degrees, but, and it's that great moist heat that makes it feel like it's 110 or 120 because of that humidity. So that's all wonderful, wonderful, wonderful stuff. So we're going to talk a little bit about how we got here, me and you together. So it was during COVID. We were all locked down. We were all sitting in our homes, and we were all, like John Oliver says, sitting in that void, right? It was just a white room. There was no one around and nothing. And you and I, mutual friend, starts up this great platform and program called Quad Meets. Well, Quad Meets was so appropriately timed for COVID. What Quad Meets was 3 random people and a host were all kind of like this on a screen, all there. You don't know who you are going in. You don't know anything about the other people. As someone who is a host like you and me, because we hosted them after a bunch, we knew about who the audience was. And our goal was to connect these people. And our goal was to introduce new people. And you loved it, didn't you?
I did. And I think I started, shout out to Ryan Christopher and Dusty DeGroff, who kind of helped spearhead the entire Quad Meet. So, without their vision, I don't think you and I would have met the way we did through Quad Meet. So definitely thankful for both of those gentlemen. But then, when I finally became a host, The one show that I always liked, Around the Horn, Woody Page always had that little whiteboard behind him. And so I had the little whiteboard because it was COVID, and every time I had a meeting, like I always used the whiteboard. But then I just would start writing positive messages on there each and every day. And I think like I hosted over 100 episodes, and I would always have like that right here. And like it would just have like an inspirational message, and it just is who I am. I just like to shine positivity in this world and just run with it. And I think that really helped add a different dimension to quad meets, and it really helped bring a lot of people together. So it's like the initial icebreaker. They see that board and they're like, oh, that's a nice message. And then they talk about that and they go from there. And that whole experience was great. I mean, it would be great if we could start again. I know I've talked to Ryan about it. And he just said there's a lot of infrastructure that has to take place. But I know like we had people from India, England, I think Far East.
We had Australia. We definitely had Australia. The United States. Trying to think, Canada.
Exactly.
And it was tariff free, so that's the easiest part, right? We were able to talk, and there were no tariffs.
Exactly.
We could do it all. And yes, if Ryan, Christopher, and Dusty are listening, yes, Quad Meet should be up and running again because it's something that it can be used. I found it incredible for so many different reasons, right? It was the interactive reason. Look, I was fortunate enough. I had my wife, I had my 2 kids, I have Vader. We were all, sitting around, and as a worst case scenario, I always had interaction. But you had, unfortunately, too many people who didn't have someone there. I had a family member who lived in a small apartment in New York City all alone. Well, what did he do? I don't know. It's like I'm stuck here. I mean, we were fortunate. We lived on an acre of land. There was enough room where I could work. My son could do his homework. My daughter could do her classwork. My wife could do her work. But a lot of people didn't have that. And I found that people were kind of being isolated, and not by choice. And quad meets went ahead, and it allowed great people like yourself to interact with other people and bring perspectives. And it was amazing, again, what it did for both business and personal for so many people.
Oh, I totally agree. And I think it's that personal connection. And, like I look at my life and, it's like I have a unique, I guess, skill set. Like I'm trained as a pharmacist, I have experience in data, but, I also had experience in hospitality. And it just was fun, just being able to connect with people. And, it started back in college at Ohio State. I was a fashion expert at Express. And then, it was just fun just to like connect with people and like you make their day. And like that was the same thing with Quad Meets. Like you connect with these professionals across the world and you're there for 30 minutes. And what can you do to make their day? And I think like that's like, either you have it or you don't. And I think for me, I have that skill within me just to like empathize with other people, understand where they come from, and really just try to make them feel great. And I think that also stems from my big brother, who I did meet several times, Michael Ray, who's the CEO of Smile Project Louisville. He's come down to Nashville. I've seen him in Louisville. He's at the Derby this week because it's the biggest time of the year in Louisville. But that man, he's just amazing. All things amazing, just how much he does and goes around and like helps bring positivity and encouragement to people in this world. And, that's what you need in this world. I think especially now with the way the world is right now, like I think a lot of people are losing hope, but I think you just need that positive energy just to be like, hey, we're going to push through. We're going to be resilient and not let anything knock us down. And that's just me. And, I look at Michael Ray, look at yourself, look at other people who I've met through Quad Meets who inspire me to do the best each and every day. So it's kind of what I'm trying to live on.
and you are certainly doing it. You're living you're one of the people who not only talk the talk, but you walk the walk, right? You just don't sit there and say, oh man, I'm moving to Wisconsin and I don't have a job lined up. No, you're out there, you're looking for that next phase in your life. You're looking for that next thing. And here we are, and you're already talking about other projects of other individuals, Michael Ray, who's out there helping others. So, you have this platform, you have this audience, you could be talking all about you, Mr. Captain Positive. And instead, you're already talking about Michael Ray and the great stuff that he does with the Louisville Project. And I mean, Michael's story is incredible as well. I've been following Michael on LinkedIn also for 6 years now.
Yeah.
I mean, this is a man that was hit with tons and tons of obstacles. And I don't think he said, yeah, I'm going to go around it or I'm going to go over it. What does Michael do? He goes through it. That's the way to do it. And that's what I see in you as well, right? You could talk about, some of the ups and downs and the roller coasters and the bumps in the road and all of this. And you could be like, forget it. I'm not doing this anymore. And you're the example of, how many times it's what, not how many times you fall down, it's how many times you get up, and how you get up is very important. If you get up and you're like, all right, ready to get hit again, it does you no good. It's like, all right, I'm up, let's go, come on, bring it. And that's what we, that's amazing. So talk a little bit about you went to college at Ohio State. Is that where you earned your degree in pharmacy, or did you have to do something afterwards to get that?
So I got my bachelor's in pharmaceutical sciences from Ohio State, or the Ohio State. Sorry, now that they put the
Ohio.
Got to say that as an alumni. And then I got my master's in pharmacy administration after that. And then, I got a job after that, working for a health insurance company, did a lot of reporting there. And then one of the people I work with there, he became a manager at a long-term care pharmacy. And then he brought me on board as a senior business analyst, and I helped create this entire new reporting structure for the company. It helped generate revenue, and it was great. I had to present it to the board of directors. I mean, the executive team had, senior VP and I were chatting. Sometimes the CEO would come in and say, hey, what's this report look like? And so, you have that experience. And then I think I would then coach the account manager. It's like, here's what this report says. Here's what you do with it. And then the account manager said, well, if you want to grow within this company, go back to pharmacy school and get your PharmD. So then you can advance the career stage. And me at that time, I was young. I still was late 20s. So I was like, yeah, why the heck not? Let me keep pushing forward and kind of be like, Tony Stark, let's keep rising to the top. And then, I look back at that, I'm like, did I make the right decision? But, I got trained as a pharmacist. I never wanted to be a licensed pharmacist, but, that thought sometimes crosses my mind. But that's kind of how I got the pharmacist moniker, was that I was working at PharMerica, and then I went to become an account manager, and then wanted to be an account manager, but my life had other plans. And during my last year of pharmacy school, right before that started, before rotations, I just was hit with a pretty serious life-changing event that brought me down to the lowest level ever. And just to rebuild from that just tested me like never before. And it helped me develop resilience. It helped me find maybe who I was. And, at the time, I think the doctors just said, you got to focus on your health. You had a very serious event that happened, and now what can you do to rebound and be resilient from it? And so that's what I had to do. And it's part of who I am, and I think that's what defines me as a person. So, yeah, people they can look at my resume like, well, what's this gap, or what happened here? I mean, healthy reasons. I mean, that's it. It's part of life. It's part of my story. But for people to judge me about it, that's what I think deep down affects me, but I'm like, I just don't need those people in my life or people who just don't understand it. And I just know that, let's see what happens. But, during that time when I was recovering, hospitality was kind of like another door that opened up. And, I had some hospitality work before, and it was like another feather in the cap. And so, I have that hospitality mindset as well. And it's just easy when you can connect with people and just really make their day. So that's kind of like how I transitioned from the pharmacy world and now, in the data and then working in hospitality as well. So kind of like three different areas, but now trying to figure out what's the right thing to do. Maybe do data for a hospitality company. That'd be great. Or, you know,
Or data for a pharmaceutical company,
yeah,
So, one of the one of the things that you need to do is you need to be able to go with the flow, and that's what it's all about, right? If you're stuck in your ways and you don't want to change, then guess what? You're going to be stuck there all by yourself, standing in the mud, in the rain, waiting. But if you could go ahead and, like Steve Nudelberg and Mark Nudelberg like to say, make yourself 1% better every day. Go for that 1% change, right? Rome wasn't built in a day, and every other cliche that's out there. But be open-minded. Be ready. Accept people. See there's a gap in the resume. Ask the question, hey, why is there a gap in your resume? Oh, I was dealing with some personal health issues. Are you okay now? Am I allowed to say that for HIPAA? I don't know, but are you okay now? Yes, I'm doing great now. I'm stronger than ever, and I'm resilient, and I'm chugging away. I had a meeting yesterday, believe it or not, to do general counsel work for a law firm / company, and they asked me for my law school transcripts, not because they wanted proof that I'm a real lawyer, because they wanted to see my grades in law school. I'm like, you kidding me? I'm 25 years out of school, almost 25 years practicing law. And you want to see my grades? You want to see that, I got a B plus in this class and an A minus in this class. And, hey, look, I got a C in law school. You want to see that I got a C plus? It is what it is. But come on, really? 24 years down the line? So needless to say, I did not go ahead and get my transcript and do whatever. And I said to the woman who was, vetting people for this role to pick up, I said, look, if you guys really want a transcript, I went to the University of Miami, you can get it. But seriously, my work, stands on its own. I don't know what's coming of it. I doubt, I'm going to land that client, but so be it. It was the weirdest thing. And I still, as I'm sitting here retelling the story, I'm still in shock. It's not like I was interviewing for a job or anything. It was like, you want someone to come in and do 10 to 15 hours of legal work for you a week, because that's what I do as a fractional GC. You don't like my work? Fire me. But who cares if I got a C plus in family law? I don't practice family law.
Yep.
So that's where I got my C. I'll admit it. I don't do family law. And it was right when my grandfather passed away, and I'm sitting there writing my answer. That's how long ago I went. It wasn't on a computer. And the scenario was, your grandfather just passed away. I'm like, and I'm sitting there in the exam crying because my grandfather had passed away 5 days prior. So again, it's all about resilience. It's all about what you learn. So I looked at myself and I'm like, what did I learn from that? And it was A, I don't want to be a family law attorney. And B, it was that, I know I'm not going to ask, let me see your transcript. Let me see your grades. If you're right out of school, maybe. If you're 5 years out of school, maybe. But short of that, who cares, right?
Yep.
This old expression that if you go to law school, C equals JD.
Exactly. And I think that's the same thing with pharmacy school. They said, what do you call the last person who graduated pharmacy school? A pharmacist. I mean, obviously you have to pass the boards, but you still have the doctor of pharmacy, and Yeah, I think just companies who like look at grades and like they even ask that like on job applications, like what was your GPA? I'm like, who cares? Like it doesn't matter, you know? Like I think I had like a 3.7 GPA, but I was like, okay, whatever. But just that question is just like it just, affects people so much because like what if someone had like a 2.5,
Right.
but they're qualified everywhere else? They still shouldn't get a shot, but I
Well,
think like the whole way that the screening process works could be tweaked, but that's
Well,
for
you
another
see it on
day.
LinkedIn all the time, right? If you're like applying for something or all of that, when it's the categories, it's like do you have this or have you done that or can you do this? And it's yes or no,
Yep.
and you don't get it. I was actually helping my son fill something out for we were looking into a scholarship for him, and it said, "What's your GPA?" And my son has like a 4.3, but it stopped at 4.0. Now I know they're probably not wanting the weighted, they probably want the unweighted, but I still put 4.0 because he has a 4.3. So
Yeah.
I think the problem is that not everybody fits neatly into a box, right? My entire life, I have been the round peg in the square hole. And that's me. I fit, but I'm not the right fit. And there's nothing wrong with that because you know what? Look, we don't want 50 robots of Iron Man. We want Captain Positive leading Iron Man. So, and that's a very important thing, and something that we're going to leave our listeners with for right now while we go to break. And when we come back from break, I want to talk a little bit about the pharmacist and the data analytics that you're talking about, and we'll maybe jump into do you think AI has an effect on that, and how it could be used, and what it could be, what could be done with that. And of course, because I have Captain Positive, aka Iron Man, on the show, we're going to have to talk a little bit about Marvel and Disney and all that kind of stuff. So that's a preview of what we're going to be talking about in about 30 seconds. Don't go away. We'll be right back. We just want to thank our sponsors for allowing us to put on this show. So sit tight for 30 seconds. We'll be right back. That was the quickest 30 seconds ever. But we are back. I'm Jason Weiss. We're on the Ask Jason Weiss show. Although I am an attorney, nothing I say today is legal advice. This is all for entertainment purposes, hypotheticals, education, and there is no attorney-client privilege created by merely watching the show. If you want to hire me, you're more than welcome to, but that is a long process to do, and not just by watching the show. And again, we have today with us Iron Man, the original Captain Positive, Ashish, who is here from Tennessee, who is going to be going to Wisconsin. So any of you Wisconsiners, Green Bay Packer fans, Milwaukeeers, and all that kind of stuff, if you need somebody in data analytics, pharmaceutical, hospitality, AI, or just an all-around great guy, he is actually looking for something to do, looking for a change. And he would be hands down a phenomenal addition to any team and any organization that wants someone who is not only a go-getter, but who's a go-getter with a smile. So one of the things that we talked about right before the break, we were talking about change and analytics and all this kind of stuff. And I didn't pre-screen this question for you because I don't pre-screen any of them. But do you see AI getting involved in pharmaceuticals, data analytics, and hospitality? I mean, those are the three areas where you concentrate. So do you see AI, making an impact and breaking through on any of those?
I mean, that's a good question. I mean, I definitely think AI is going to, take over data analytics just because writing a SQL code, you just have to write the code. You just have the robot do it. I mean, you don't need a human to write the code. You just train the robot, write the code, and you go from there. And like, I'll be honest, like there were times when I was writing a query and I didn't know exactly like how to phrase it. So I used Chat GPT and it helped me write the code. And so, it was a simple query that I had to write, but if Chat GPT can help write queries, there's no saying what can be done moving forward. So it's like, it could definitely work in analytics for pharmacy. I don't know. It all depends, because I think, when you go to the pharmacist or you go to the pharmacy, you want to speak to the pharmacist, or you want to have that human interaction. You don't want to speak to a robot. Oh, here's your medication, and you're talking to a robot who has like pre-programmed answers. Like, unless like they have like every single possible question being asked by a person, I don't think like it would work in pharmacy. And in hospitality, again, like having worked in hotels or restaurants, there's always those oddball questions. And I think like as a host or, front desk agent or supervisor, you just have to be on your feet. So I definitely see AI in data, but as far as the other two fields, I don't see it yet, but that's not to say that it won't happen anytime soon.
So I guess the question becomes, and more on the pharmacy. Look, I go to my local pharmacist and pick up my prescriptions, but someone's actually there manually counting the pills and manually counting this and checking it. I still think, even if we had robots or machines, pump it out and do all this, I still think there's going to be a human factor there where people need to check it out, and they have to ask the pharmacist. And again, AI as a tool might help, so one of the things, not to get overly personal about myself, is I'm allergic to penicillin, Keflex, and Chlor. So every time I pick up a new script, anything that's new that I've never had before, what my question is.
Yep.
Mr. Pharmacist, Mrs. Pharmacist, I'm allergic to penicillin, Keflex, and Chlor. Can I take this? Not only do I ask the doctor when they prescribe it, but I also asked the pharmacist. And believe it or not, there was one time that I went to a doctor that the doctor said, oh, yeah, you could take it, no problem. And I went to the pharmacist and we were talking, and I said, yeah, I'm allergic to penicillin, Keflex, and Chlor. And the pharmacist said, wait a second, then what are you taking this for? I said, for strep throat, because I can't take penicillin, Keflex, and Chlor. This is what they put me on. They usually put me on a Z-Pak, but they put me on this instead. Pharmacist probably saved my life, because if I would have taken it, I found out that it was a derivative of penicillin, and I probably would have gone in a cardiac arrest.
Well, so I'm glad that you didn't. And yeah, I mean, with all those drug interactions, you have to really be in tune. You really have to understand exactly like what could go wrong, things of that nature. And yeah, I don't think like a robot would have that. Would have that knowledge or to really understand what's going on. And, the same thing happened to me, after I had those health issues in 2013 that knocked me off my pedestal. They were giving me an antibiotic that one of the side effects of that is pretty serious. And I got that rare side effect, and it like nearly like I had trouble breathing. I was flush, and everything was just like, what's going on? So they stopped it, and then they said, yeah, you have the very rare serious side effect from this antibiotic. And I was like, great. But at that point, I didn't care. I was like, with everything that has happened in my life to that point, I was like, it's par for the course, and just move forward with it.
But look, we were talking today, you said that, you were taking something because you're a little nasally because of the allergies and everything going out there. And I found out, the easy / hard way that I'm allergic to that. Every time I take a Sudafed, if I take it, more than 1 or 2 doses as prescribed, I start itching. Yeah. And so what did I do? I called my pharmacist. Or actually, I didn't call. I went down the street to Publix where the pharmacist is, and I said, hey, his name is Ben. Hey, Ben, what's going on? How you doing? It's like, look, I just got something tickling and all this, and I just need a decongestant. I can't take Sudafed. He's like, why not? I said, I just start itching. He goes, oh, you have this allergy, and you're sensitive to pseudometaphine and blah blah blah, and take this brand instead. And I did, and now I'm hooked on Mucinex only when needed, not every single day, but only when needed. It was kind of like what was Afrin? Oh my god!
Oh yeah,
that was the best stuff in the world. But you get addicted to it.
Yeah,
you can get addicted to it. So just like anything, right? We were addicted to quad meats. So Ryan, Dusty, we're bringing it back, guys. And Dusty and I talk regularly, so we're bringing it back. So let's do some quad meets so that we can all get together and share some stories. So you have the pharmacy background, you have the hospitality background, you have the data analytics background. So if anybody was listening today in a specific industry or, anything in there, what is it that you believe today, because it could change tomorrow, but what do you believe would be like your ideal spot with all that background and all that knowledge? Like if we were just to create a job and say, boom, Captain Positive, it's yours, what would that look like?
I mean, that's a good question, and I've thought about that, just with, I never signed up for all the events that have happened in my life. And, after the health issues, losing my dad was, I think, the biggest blow, because I lost him to COVID, and it was 2 weeks before the vaccine came out. And so that was just brutal. And like, I saw him with his last, moments where he was in the hospital bed. He had lost 15 pounds and he looked frail. I didn't even recognize him. And like, he was, 4 of his organs just were totally affected. So that also was like another chapter of my life that really like threw me for a loop. And like, you think about all that trauma and it's like you're able to relate. And so like, you look at pharmacy, it's okay. And it's been 10 years since I got my PharmD. With data, like, I've tried it, but now with all the cuts with Doge and everything else, like, I applied for one job and I was like the 1800th candidate to apply for a data analytics job. And I was just like, okay. And then I'm like, okay, hospitality, I've been a supervisor. So I'm thinking, well, do I like leverage this and like go into like a leadership position in a hotel where you can look at the reports, you look at the numbers and help increase metrics? Because like, if you're looking at scores like guest satisfaction surveys and you're like at a 4.3 and you as a hotel want to get up to 4.8, what do? So you say, okay, we're here. What steps need to be done to increase the score, and go from there? So you're using your data analytical skills and you're able to lead people and you go from there. And, I have been in Toastmasters, I was division governor, I was area governor, I was president of my pharmacy school class, I was president of the Student Government Association. So like, I have that leadership ability as well. So, I see perhaps hospitality might be like the way to go and kind of go from there. But I think
it sounds it just from the way you're talking about it. You seem to be getting a little bit excited about it. So, hospitality, the one thing I'll tell you is I represent a lot of people in the hospitality industry. Do not buy or open a restaurant. That's the one thing that we're going to keep you from doing. Now, if you're managing a restaurant as part of the hotel that you're managing, that's okay. But the restaurant, I mean, look, when you can't even get at the local grocery store, a soda for less than $1, there's a problem, right? I went into Publix. That's what we have down here in South Florida. It was almost $11 for a 12-pack of Coke Zero.
No, it's about the same thing here. And it was like, yeah, it was, I think at Kroger, it was buy 2, get 1 free. And it was $12.99 for for 3 cases. But I'm like, it used to be like $5 or $6 back in the day, but
it used to be 3 for $10. It was 3 for $10. Then it was like 4 for $20. And then it was like 3 for, like 15, or 3 for, I just, it's crazy. And look, the only thing it's done for me is it's allowed me to get a little bit more health conscious. And, I went from drinking, I don't know, 6 to 8 cans of Coke Zero a day. I'm down to 2, which is great for me, saving me money. And I've lost a couple pounds just from cutting out the amount. I don't have as much caffeine, so I'm drinking my Celsius in the morning to get me going. Which, thank you, Joel Rothman, for getting me addicted to Celsius and loving it like 12 or 13 years ago, and for all you do for me all the time, Joel. But look, that is, that's what this is all about, right? It's, we learn, we move, and we always want to improve. And that's one of the things about you, right? I lost my dad in October, actually Halloween 2023. And as you were telling your story about your dad with COVID, I'm sitting there. I remember, flying to Atlanta 3 days a week to see my dad, in the hospital bed. It sucked. And look, you lost your dad 6 years ago or 5 years ago, and I'm sure it's there are still times I literally pick up my phone to call my dad. I watched the draft the other night. I'm a huge draft junkie. I love watching the draft, and I want to call my dad. Hey, the Giants finally did something good, and I couldn't call my dad. Yeah. I mean, I have his cell phone sitting right here behind me because I couldn't give up the number and I wanted to keep it. But I'm never going to replace that, no matter what.
And I think that's the other thing. Now, I think just after losing my dad, it was a big shock to everyone because I think just the way he passed, and he was so loving, he was so understanding. He was just a gentle giant. He was always smiling. He always was just loving everyone. I went to India this past winter, first time in 14 years, and everyone was just talking about how great my dad was. And now that he's not there, it's affected my mom big time. And so I'm here in Tennessee, we give each other company, which is great. But she's also wondering, does she want to stay here? Does she want to move back to India? So, there's that dynamics as well. But, the one thing about Wisconsin was my dad's first job after he graduated Stanford, which he was a walking genius. He had a double master's, 4.0 in Stanford, graduated in 9 months. I don't know how he did that, but props to him for that. And his first job was in Milwaukee after he graduated from Stanford. And so I think that's the other thing. If I'm in Wisconsin or Milwaukee, it'd be great because I would feel like my dad is there. And yeah, I mean, Wisconsin's great. There's some people there who definitely love snacks, that definitely love, these other things, these food stools from Home Goods, they're just the most amazing things ever. And you see them and then you see their passion behind it and you're you love it. So you respect their passion and you find people like that and you want to be around people who are passionate, because I think that's what uplifts you. And how you're passionate about, the work that you do about lacrosse, everything else, coffee, that's inspiration for me. Or with Michael Ray, being positive about helping people and smiles, or, Dusty, I know he was big on working out, or, Ryan, just, how he's great at just everything. And so, or even Joe Blank, I know he was another person I went through quad meets who was
Joe, I miss Joe. We talk all the time. But look, I think passion is like a yawn, and I can't even say the word. I have to. I'm sorry, I did that to all the listeners, but it's contagious, right? If you're passionate, you during this show, when you started talking about the hospitality, your passion just got there. And now maybe it's the Celsius that kicked in, but I've got more passion too, and it's absolutely contagious. Passion is contagious. Being passionate is contagious, and showing passionism to others is also contagious, and that's what we should do. Scott McGregor, one of my friends and somebody who I admire greatly, he designed a shirt, and it's the word people. It's a line, and then it's everything, and it's simple for what it stands for: people over everything. And that's something that we need to remember. And we're not going to talk politics. We're not going to talk about anything like that. But we need to remember, we're all human beings first and foremost.
I agree.
And you need to treat the people that you work with, live with, admire, don't like, whatever it is, treat them the same way that you want to be treated. And the example that I can give was something that happened today. I got a panicked phone call from an attorney on the other side who I know, and she said to me, Jason, I apologize. I'm late on something that was due. The court is going to be very angry at me. I didn't file something timely. It's not going to be good. Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God. Relax. Let's figure this out together. What can we do? And we wound up, we're filing a joint motion that's probably being uploaded as I speak, saying that, yes, we missed a deadline. We're so sorry. So be it. She fell on the sword saying she calendared it for the month of June instead of the month of May. It is what it is. And you know what? If I were in her shoes and I was the one making the phone call, I probably would have wanted someone to react like I did. And I always do that, right? I did it yesterday. Some car cut me off when I was driving on my way back from a meeting, and my normal is, I want to yell and scream and give the finger and do all this. And you know what? I bit my tongue because I remembered about a week ago, I cut somebody off, totally unintentional. And the car honked at me, and I went, sorry, and they pulled up to me, and I said, sorry, and they said, hey, no problem. So I paid it forward. And I think that's what you do all the time. You're always paying it forward. You're always
I think paying it forward, and I think it's just who I am, and I think that's just what really resonates with me, because I think just, with my story, I was rescued from an orphanage, so my parents adopted me, so they paid it forward and gave me a life here where I could have grown up in the streets in India. So that's who I am. And it's like, I have a big heart because my parents had a big heart, and I'm so thankful for them. Sometimes I don't see eye to eye, but that doesn't mean any less that I don't love my mom any less, or I don't love my dad any less. And sometimes they probably were like, my God, this son of ours, what's wrong with him? And sometimes I just did stupid things, but hey, I still love my parents. But it's because of their love for me. That's what shapes me, and that's what I use to love other people. And I think that ties well in like a role like in hospitality, where you can really understand other people and really help them out. And it actually happened yesterday. There was this family from Wisconsin who was staying at a hotel that I work at, and this was their first time in Nashville. So I just told them where everything is, and I kind of like gave them like an itinerary and everything. And they were just like blown away. They're like, thank you for taking the time out to help us out. And I said, that's what life is all about, is you making everyone feel like they matter. And I feel like today's society, you apply for a job, they just look at a piece of paper. They don't want to get to know you as a person. But
and they run it through one of these automatic things. And if you don't have all the boxes and all the bullet points in the right spot, and the right font and the right color and the right this and the right that, you get rejected. Yeah. I was speaking to a buddy yesterday who called me up and said, hey, I'm applying for this job. I'm listing you, Jason, as one of my references. And I said, I would be honored. I'm so excited. Send me the job description so I can see. And I read the job description. I'm like, holy cow, this is like him to a T. This is great for him. And next thing I know, he calls me back and I'm like, so he's like, no, I got rejected. I'm like, wait. When did you apply? He's like 4 hours ago. I'm like, are you kidding me? We came up with a little bit of a strategy where we found the CEO of the company. He reached out to the CEO of the company on LinkedIn. And he's waiting to hear back just to say, look, I applied. I check every box. Can you just explain to me what I could do different next time? So hopefully for his sake, he'll get it. So I just got a note that we have like a minute left. I can't believe this flew. Normally I ask a tough question like, what's, your favorite Marvel character? Well, yours is easy, Iron Man. So I will ask this because it's simple. On any streaming platform that you choose, Netflix or HBO Max or whatever it is, what are you currently enjoying and watching?
So that's a good question. So I don't have Netflix or anything else. So I have this like streaming box. So it's like called IPTV, and so it's like $10 a month, but I get every single movie, TV show, everything that I get. And so, one of my friends when I was working here at 10 Care, he got me that, and then my cousin who lives in New Jersey, he got that for my mom. And so basically, like I have like over, kid you not, over 1,000 TV shows or movies that I watch. So,
so what are you enjoying currently?
So I was watching Fast and the Furious. That's, I think, after Avengers, I think Fast and Furious is like the next movie that really resonates with me because of how close everyone is. And I think Dominic Toretto, just his character and some of the quotes that he says, like he says, money comes and goes, but it's like the people that are in this room matter the most. And that's what also ties to my life. Is like, yeah, I've made mistakes like every human being, but at the end of the day, it's all about, the connections that I make with professionals like yourself, and you have those in your corner. I've been so busy with other things that have happened in my life that I'm guilty of not staying in touch with as many people as I should have. But, I'm trying to make a difference, and, I just have to be patient. Hopefully I can find a job in Wisconsin and I can move and just have that memory of my dad there and, just move there. But, I'm thankful for Tennessee, thankful for the time here, but I just see myself as more of a Midwesterner than a deep South guy. And
so here's what we're going to do, ladies and gentlemen that are listening. If you're in the hospitality industry in Wisconsin and you're looking for a rock star, an Iron Man, a superhero, look no further. You've got Captain Positive, Ashish right here. And Ashish, what is the best way that people can get you? I think we have an email address for you that is that we'll put across the bottom so that people could get you. But you could also find Ashish on LinkedIn, ASHISHP. Find him on LinkedIn. You can find him all over the place. Ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, thank you for joining our show today. Ashish, thank you for being here. Thank you for all your positivity, and just it's infectious. And I loved having you on the show. Find him on LinkedIn. Ladies and gentlemen, have a happy May, and we'll see you in 2 weeks. Take care, everyone.